My wife cheated on me with my cousin and had a baby. My family kept it secret for years. My wife cheated on me with my cousin and had a child. My family kept this secret from me for years. Now, after I've achieved success, I want to come back into my life. Please be patient as I explain the entire situation because there's a lot of history to unpack. I'm 44 years old and have been married to my current wife for 10 years. She's 41 and we've been together for 13 years. We have an 8-year-old son and live a good life. Before this, I was married at 22, but that relationship ended in divorce after 3 years for reasons I never fully understood. My ex-wife, let's call her Amy, had been part of my life since high school. We were essentially childhood sweethearts and decided to marry right after finishing college. In the beginning, our marriage seemed perfect, but things quickly deteriorated. Amy grew distant despite my efforts to revive our relationship. A few weeks before our 3rd anniversary, she handed me divorce papers and told me it was over without offering any real explanation. I was angry and heartbroken, but I had no choice but to move on. Since we had few assets, the divorce process was straightforward, and once finalized, Amy disappeared, moving to another city and cutting off all communication. Around this time, something even more confusing happened. My family also distanced themselves from me. It was strange and deeply painful. At a moment when I needed their support, they seemed to vanish from my life. My calls went unanswered, and I discovered I had been blocked on social media. Attempts to visit them were met with cold indifference. They wouldn't even open the door. Their silence was devastating, especially since I was already struggling emotionally. Thankfully, my friends were there for me. They encouraged me to move forward, even when the odds felt stacked against me. Inspired by their support, I decided to chase a long-held dream of opening my own restaurant. During my marriage to Amy, I had put that dream on hold, but after the divorce, I resolved to pursue it wholeheartedly. Ironically, I used a name for the restaurant that my parents had once suggested. With the help of my friends, I found investors and crafted a solid business plan. It took years of hard work, but eventually, I opened the restaurant and began rebuilding my life. A couple of years later, I met my current wife at an event where she praised my restaurant. We hit it off, started dating, and after 3 years, we got married. Now, a decade into our marriage, we have a wonderful son. My professional life has flourished. What began as one restaurant grew into a successful hospitality group. I'm now the CEO of a company that owns multiple restaurants and hotels, with plans to expand even further. The journey hasn't been easy, but I've worked tirelessly to get here. Recently, I agreed to an interview to share my story, unaware it would trigger a dramatic turn of events. After the interview aired, my family resurfaced completely out of the blue. They came to my workplace uninvited and insisted on seeing me. When my receptionist informed me they were in the lobby, I was initially confused and assumed it was my wife or son. Instead, it was my parents and sister, whom I hadn't seen in over 20 years. They acted as if nothing had happened, showering me with compliments about my success and pretending to be proud of the person I'd become. They even expressed excitement about meeting my wife and son. Their words felt hollow. It didn't take long before they began criticizing me for not trying harder to reconnect with them after my divorce. This was my chance to finally understand why they had abandoned me. I decided to hear them out, and the truth they revealed was staggering. During my marriage to Amy, she had been cheating on me with my cousin Carl. My family not only knew about the affair, but actively helped Amy cover it up. They claimed their loyalty to Carl stemmed from fear of upsetting his father, who was both my dad's older brother and his boss. As if that weren't enough, I learned that Amy had been pregnant at the time of our divorce, something I was never told. My cousin Carl had raised the child as his own, and to this day, my daughter, now 20, believes he is her biological father. Betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined. For 2 decades, my family had chosen to side with Carl and Amy, prioritizing their own convenience over the truth. Now, seeing my success, they suddenly wanted back in my life. They justified their actions as necessary, but it was clear they were only reaching out because they saw an opportunity. When they finished their explanation, I politely but firmly told them to leave. Their excuses and half-hearted apologies didn't change the pain they caused. Despite their protests, I stood my ground, even threatening to call security if they didn't go. They eventually left, but have since bombarded me with emails and messages, begging for another chance. I've discussed this situation with my wife, particularly the revelation about my daughter. She believes I should consider meeting with my family to find closure and reduce the emotional toll this has taken. But I'm torn. Part of me feels that after 20 years of silence and betrayal, they don't deserve another chance. At the same time, I wonder if reconnecting could help us heal and give me an opportunity opportunity to build a relationship with my daughter. For now, I remain conflicted. Is it wrong to refuse to forgive them? Should I prioritize my mental health over potential reconciliation? These are the questions I'm struggling to answer. Update 1. It's been a week and 3 days since my initial post. My wife and I decided to keep ignoring my relatives. Thankfully, they haven't shown up at my workplace recently, likely because they're either too exhausted or wary of security. Regardless, I'm relieved it has become easier to stop thinking about them now that they've stopped visiting. It seems I was feeling guilty about the way I was handling things simply because of their presence. Now, I don't feel bad about ignoring their messages, no matter how many apologies they send. Nothing will change the fact that they failed me as a family. I'm not even bothering to block them anymore, even though they keep reaching out through different accounts and emails. What's the point? I'll just keep ignoring them, no matter how hard they try to apologize with new profiles. Let's see how long they keep this up. As for the other challenge we're facing, my daughter, neither my wife nor I know how to approach this situation. My parents told me where she attends college during our conversation, so we have her name. I haven't taken any steps yet, but my assistant managed to locate her social media profiles. I don't know if it's appropriate to reach out, and I also don't know how to inform her that I'm her biological father. I can't just show up at Amy's house and demand custody or something, as she's no longer a child. Furthermore, given what I've learned about Amy, I'd prefer not to involve her in this at all. I have no respect for her or my family anymore. They're all cowards, and I want nothing to do with them. But my daughter is still my biological child, no matter who raised her. If you have any suggestions on how to approach her, or if I should even do so, please share them. I'd also like to thank everyone who left comments on my first post. Your advice has been incredibly helpful. Update 2. After reading comments on my last update, my wife and I decided to move forward. Waiting for the perfect moment or opportunity to contact my daughter seemed pointless. We needed to take action and deal with it. Since she lives in another state, we thought it inappropriate to fly over without reaching out first. So, we decided to send her a message on Instagram and explained everything as politely as possible. Now, we're just waiting for a response. I know it'll be difficult for her to process, as it is for me. What surprises me most is how supportive my wife has been about my efforts to reconnect with the daughter I lost from a previous marriage. We're doing our best, though I'm sure this situation stirs up a lot of emotions for all of us. I genuinely hope she responds, as I'd love to build a relationship with her. My parents haven't shown up at my workplace again, but they did send a lengthy email yesterday expressing their deep regret and desire to reconnect. They promised to wait for me to reach out before attempting to contact me again. Honestly, I felt a bit relieved they finally understood I'm not ready to talk to them. The last thing I need is for them to add more drama to my already complicated life. I'll reach out when I feel ready, but that doesn't seem likely anytime soon. At least one good thing came out of this. I learned more about my daughter, and I hope she's willing to give our relationship a chance. I haven't told my son about her yet, because I don't want to raise false hopes. But if everything works out, he might see her as a sister, and I'll finally get to know the daughter I never knew I had. Update 3. It's been about 2 weeks since I contacted my daughter through social media. I sent her a message explaining everything about who I am and our relationship. Today, I finally got a reply after the long wait. She mentioned that she spoke with her mother and confirmed that I am indeed her biological father. Naturally, she was shocked, as she always believed Carl was her biological dad for the past 20 years. She also said she wants to meet me and my family after learning the truth about how Amy and I ended up in this situation. Since she doesn't have the means to visit us and isn't currently speaking to her family, we've decided to fly out to see her this weekend. She didn't go into much detail, but when confronted, Amy initially tried to deny everything before ultimately admitting the truth. I haven't heard anything from Amy, and I hope it stays that way. Interestingly, when my extended family found out I had contacted my daughter, they broke their promise and began trying to reach me again. My uncle, predictably, was furious about the situation. Understandably so, since they spent 20 years ensuring I never found out just to avoid disrupting their lives. Apparently, my uncle is now blaming my parents for letting this slip. My father, who still seems intimidated by his older brother despite running his own business, has been begging me to clarify that neither Carl nor my uncle had anything to do with my discovery. Frankly, I don't see the point. They're the only ones who could have kept this secret, and I doubt anyone would believe otherwise. Most of my family never cared to maintain contact with me during those 20 years, so they're current panic to preserve ties with my uncle means nothing to me. I lost 2 decades with my daughter because of them, and if they feel some discomfort now, it's the least they deserve. Update 4. Today, I finally met my daughter. It was initially awkward, then emotional, but overall, it was simply amazing. Despite being raised by 2 of the worst people I've ever known, she seems to have grown into a kind and caring young woman. She's mature and intelligent, whether by nature or upbringing. During our long conversation, we discussed Amy and Carl's roles in all of this. She told me she doesn't care whether they approve of her meeting me. Now that she knows the truth, she doesn't plan to cut them off entirely, since they have no other children. She will distance herself while processing everything. She also said she'll need time to develop a relationship with me, which I completely understand. Her life has been turned upside down, and she's navigating a very strange emotional state. It was heartwarming to see her get along well with my wife and her half-brother, and we had a great day together. During dinner, we learned that my parents, her grandparents, kept in touch with her throughout the years. She always thought their sentimentality was odd, but now it makes sense. This revelation has changed how both of us see my parents. While I can somewhat relate to her feelings, having been betrayed by those I trusted most, her experience is unique. She's only 20 and likely struggling much more than I am to make sense of this. Still, we'll both work on this together. The important thing is that the meeting went well, and both my family and I feel hopeful. After all these years, we finally have a chance to set things right, and I intend to make the most of it. Thank you for following along. If you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on more impactful life stories like this.